Just listen to this, guys. I am so glad to inform that your Silicon Valley Girl trademark was registered by the European Union Intellectual Property Office. This is what I do now. This is what I do these days when I come up with a name that I really like, because I already made this mistake with LinguaTrip. And I'm gonna tell you a story today that cost us $20,000. It could have cost more, and I just want you to learn from my mistake. So here's the story. 2015, we decided that we want to build a platform for booking language courses online, and the initial name for the platform was MP Reserver, like Mogilko, Pisalako, first letters of our last names, and somehow we thought that Reserver will be associated with booking language courses. In real life, people were thinking we were a server company. So the first advice that we get from our first advisor from London, he says, before you apply to Y Combinator or any other accelerator, you guys need to change the name of your startup. And we're like, okay, that sounds reasonable, because people don't understand what's going on with our company. So I sit down, and I remember that day, I sit down in an office, and we had a partnership with a company which name started with Lingua, and they were like Lingua Leo, Russian company. And we had this first partnership, and I really liked the Lingua part because we were trying to build an international company. And I thought, when you start with Lingua, and Lingua is Italian, it's Spanish, and Italian speakers, Spanish speakers are very active language travelers. Used to be very active travelers before COVID. Now, I guess I need to say things in the past, but I'm hoping that the industry is going to recover. And I thought, Lingua Trip is a perfect name. And we were looking for a .com domain, and I Google it, and wow, it's free. Like, before that, we were trying so many names, and every .com domain was taken, and all of them were empty. And I know there are companies out there who just take popular names. They just generate a lot of names. They buy those domains in hopes that somebody would come up with that name, and they will buy the domain for a higher price for them. I was so surprised that linguatrip.com was available, and I called Dima, and I'm like, oh my god, I came up with an awesome name. It's gonna be LinguaTrip. You understand exactly. Well, and again, I thought people would understand exactly what we mean, but in America, when we had our first day at 500 Startup, and I told people like, we're a LinguaTrip, guess what we do? And they thought we were doing something with linguine, like a type of kind of spaghetti, but you know what I mean. Not a lot of Americans know the word lingua, but again, I was okay with that because our target market is not America. Our target market are actually people who learn English, and again, for Spanish speakers, I thought that would make a lot of sense. So we were super happy that .com domain was available. We booked it right away. We started changing our name everywhere. And I also Googled linguatrip.ru, and Russia was one of our main markets because we started there. And I just saw that it was bought by someone, but there was nothing on the website. I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's just another company who bought the domain in hopes to sell it later. And because we weren't really interested in pursuing the Russian market, I was like, okay, whatever. We just go with linguatrip.com. And we raised money, we started operating. And then suddenly we started getting messages from our customers saying, I booked a trip with you, but you haven't responded, etc. And I start realizing they booked a trip on a different website, linguatrip.ru, and they were Russian customers. And I got to that website, and I realized the website has the exact same thing that we were doing, just a different design. And people started mixing us up like crazy because we still had a lot of Russian-speaking customers. So our initial thoughts were like, probably the company that bought that domain has noticed us because there was some press in Russia about us raising money. And they started doing exactly the same thing just to take the traffic from us. And instead of talking to those guys right away, we decided that we're gonna start this bid war on Google Ads. So we started bidding on the name LinguaTrip to advertise ourselves, to be on top of the search. They started doing the same, and it basically, the price for that LinguaTrip ad started skyrocketing because we were outbidding each other. And it just became crazy. And I think they were the ones who reached out to us and said like, hey guys, we really need to talk about it because continuing wars like this wouldn't work. And we were planning our trip to Moscow, and we decided to meet up with them. And so when we met up with them, they asked for $100,000 to purchase that domain. And we actually realized they had this name for their company before we emerged, and they were doing also kind of the same thing. So it's not like this website company that just keeps buying websites. They were actually doing the same thing, and that was a business for them. That's why they asked for $100,000. But back then, I think we raised a little more than 100,000, and we just didn't have that money. And we told them, you know, we really like this name, but in this case, it would just make sense for us to change the name of the company or just continue working in the US without really tapping into Russian market. But it was unaffordable. Like, it was easier for us to just change the name of the company, and we already started brainstorming other names. Some time passed, and they reached out to us and said like, hey, I guess they were not making too much money, and like competing on bidding on Google Ads wasn't a good idea for them, and they reached out to us and said like, hey, let's settle on 20K. I think that was the year when we started growing really fast. And I just thought, you know, we'll just pay them 20K. They had the registered trademark. That was the whole thing. They not only had the domain, they had the registered trademark in Russia. So, and we had the registered trademark in America and the European Union. And so we made this deal to buy the domain name and the trademark for $20,000. This was an expensive mistake. So these days I try to register every single name that I use, just because it would be really disappointing, like having grown Silicon Valley Girl and then coming to Europe and, you know, having someone impersonate me or use my trademark and like having conflicts because of that. So my action plan for you would be, first of all, if you're serious about your company and you came up with a good name, register a trademark. In the US, I register trademarks myself just because you can do it. You go to USPTO and you do everything yourself, and it's a pretty straightforward process. If there are no conflicts, if you're not like trying to register Apple as a trademark. But in Europe, I can highly recommend a professional who helped us with both LinguaTrip and Silicon Valley Girl, because Silicon Valley Girl is a very difficult trademark. I couldn't get it in the US because of Silicon Valley HBO, but I was able to get it in Europe. Sophia has started a company in London, and they've been doing this for over 8 years, helping people from all over the world get their trademarks registered in European Union and the UK. You can go to their website philan.com/trademarks and see how they can help you. But again, I highly recommend that if you're serious about your company, if you started building it already, and if you think that the name is perfect, like I had those thoughts, I would just go ahead and file for trademarks in countries where you try to operate. Maybe US, UK, Europe would be like 3 main countries. So Sophia will be able to help you with European Union and UK. Because they helped us with our trademarks, I was able to get an offer for you guys as well. So with the trademarks, it works in a way that if you file for a trademark in the European Union, you need to file for a separate trademark in the UK. And normally the service will cost 390 British pounds, but for my subscribers, she's waiving this additional fee to register your trademark in the UK. And just remember, this is a new rule. It started in 2021 that UK trademarks are no longer covered by the European Union laws. And the offer is till June 30th, 2021. Again, $20,000 that we paid for a trademark in a country like Russia, that was like a big deal for us. But I also understand that if your company grows like crazy, people would ask for a lot more money. They would ask for hundreds of thousands of dollars, especially if they own a trademark and you try to operate in their country. So think about this in advance and learn from my mistakes. Thank you guys for watching this video up to the very end. Thank you for learning with me, and thank you for sharing my entrepreneurial journey with me here on this channel. I will see you very soon in my next videos, and like this video if you enjoy the content, and subscribe to Silicon Valley Girl, which is now an official trademark owned by me in the European Union. Thank you. Bye-bye.